How is it going, everybody? This is Spruce from Ginger and Spruce, and today I'm going to be talking about reviewing a little bit a game that just has been in beta for not too long. I was invited into the beta program to check it out, look for any bugs and that kind of stuff. This game is Rogue Lords. It's actually really interesting, so let's go ahead and switch over. Alright, so this game is what they consider to be a roguelite. You go through the game, you play along, and because of the difficulty level of it, eventually you will, unfortunately, lose. This game has some interesting mechanics, though, in that if you do lose, because you play as the devil, don't technically lose. Let me explain what I mean by showing you. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and start up a new game so we can go through this and experience it.
Many moons ago, mortals rose up against me and chased me down. They were led by demon hunters, wretched beings incapable of seeing the beauty of a corrupted world. My creatures and demons gave everything they had in the fight, but it was not enough. I was forced to leave the world of the living. Weakened, I returned to hell to survive. For years I consumed fresh souls to regain my power, but their numbers are fast diminishing. I cannot wait anymore. I must reclaim my rightful place. It is time to gather my forces once more. Those who signed a pact with me will do as I order. They will spread terror and corruption in my name. The time has come for my revenge.
Alright, so already some fantastic storytelling. Welcome. We are in the Devil's Lair. So it says, welcome to your fortress. From here, you can launch adventures from the map of the New World, read about your servants in the chart of disciples, and follow your progress on the altar of conquests. So, right here is the map. Click on that. This is the map of the New World. This is the overworld where you will basically pick whichever chapters you are working on, and you'll go through the stories, or what they call books, until you finish them, so that you can progress through the game. Alright, so it says map of the New World. This map depicts the New World. The demon hunters put an end to your reign in this region 10 years ago. It's here that you'll choose missions for your disciples in their quest to avenge you. The further you progress in the game, the stronger your adversaries become, and the overall difficulty of the game increases. For the moment, your adversaries are weak, so take advantage of it and hit hard. So before we get into that, I'm actually going to lower the volume a little bit here. Oh, it won't let me. Okay.
Many years ago, I was banished from the terrestrial plane by Van Helsing and his demon hunters. Since then, I have reigned over hell while awaiting the hour of my return. But things are changing. The souls of the deceased no longer descend into hell. Have humans become more virtuous? Or is there a new force conspiring to usurp my power? I recall into service my disciples, powerful beings who once made a pact with me. They can move freely in this region called the New World, where I was undone by Van Helsing. They will find him and exact my revenge upon him.
Alright, so our goal is to defeat Van Helsing, this guy right here on the left. And we will be using disciples. So we have Dracula, the Headless Horseman, and it wants us to choose a third disciple. Right now, we have a bunch of locked disciples, and then we have Bloody Mary. So now we have Dracula, Headless Horseman, and Bloody Mary. And we're going to go ahead and begin. Currently difficulty level 1, so there's no modifiers to our enemies. They are base strength. Alright, so we are in the world of the living. You control a group of disciples and choose one to represent the group. So that's your avatar on this overworld. You navigate from zone to zone by choosing your route on the map. You have to complete the main activity in a zone before you can move on to the next. Alright, so overall, graphics look great. Very good aesthetic, I like it. Dark, gloomy, clean. Sound effects are good. Voice acting is great. I really enjoy it. The actors they picked for the devil, who we've heard so far, as well as the disciples. Alright, so Millerton, this area right here, this is a event. So we call this this is a book chapter. The main activity in this particular area, by completing it, we gain access to the new zones, so we can move forward. This kind of like steps in stages as we go through. We have choice, branching left and right, sometimes 3 or 4 choices. Let's get into it.
Through the renewed link with my disciples, I become aware of the situation in the new world. The demon hunters have increased their hold on the population. They are everywhere, on the roads, in the villages, patrolling and imposing a summary justice. On the other hand, no one has heard of the 6 artifacts stolen from me by Van Helsing during our last confrontation. If he is using them, he does not boast of it. My attention is drawn towards a new religion. The Sanctua Lumen, as it is called, is increasing its hold on humans. My disciples decide to go to one of its sanctuaries in order to learn more.
Alright, so the disciples of the devil are kind of scouting out, checking out what's going on. This is just one of the book chapters. You kind of listen, and then we get into the actual action here pretty soon. Click on the map to consult it. So we click on the map, the book map. So this is the map of the level. Book map shows the zones and paths for 2 chapters. It also shows you the special effects that might affect certain zones during gameplay. The first zone in each book is always a combat. Alright, so if we look, what we see here is where we are now, the book chapter that we started with. Next up we have a combat. So this is where you actually fight enemies using your disciples, and they have different skills. And I'll show you. Then we have the Styx Fountain, which is a place where you can go to either heal the overall currency, which we'll talk about in just a second, or you can remove negative traits from your disciples. Then we have events. They are exactly what they sound like. We have the Grim Reaper, which is kind of our vendor. You can get different skills, get relics.
Who gave me such lazy disciples?
Oh my gosh, he's telling me I'm lazy. I'm trying to explain. And then we have another book chapter. So let's move on. So you don't just click on the area in the map, you actually have to move your character around. You can do that with the mouse. Let's go. Alright, so that currency that I was telling you about, that primary currency, is called Diabolic Essence. You, as the devil, have magical powers, and it is also your kind of hit points. So Diabolical Essence is your main resource. If you run out, you lose, just like with health. Essence can be lost during combats or used to boost your influence over the world of mortals. So you can kind of change how events work using Diabolic Essence, and I can show you that during events. We have the other currency, which we use with the Grim Reaper. It's called Condemned Souls. Souls can be won during combat or during events. They can be traded to the Grim Reaper to obtain skills, increase the rarity of skills you already have, or to obtain relics. And we'll be seeing the Grim Reaper here shortly, so I'll explain how that works in just a second. Now we have something called Terror. As you accumulate events and combats, the terror you inspire grows. So you have this meter here off on the left. Each increase produces a terror effect on the zones on a subsequent night and gives you advantages. For every 4 increases, you move up a notch, which permanently increases your chance to obtain higher rarity skills, and you receive a relic. So as we go through events, we kind of increase our terror level. So currently we have no benefits from terror, we're not that scary, but as we go through, we do combat, we do different events, we get to raise that up. Alright, so with combat, we have the ability to choose our reward from here. We have what's called a frontal attack, which will give us a terror effect in one night. So we'll raise this bar basically a little bit. With this one, we set up an ambush, we can acquire a skill at the end of combat, and then attack discreetly, which allows us to collect more souls, which we can use to purchase things later. This symbol on the right here is the number of waves of enemies that you have to face. And for right now, it's just one wave.
Heads will roll tonight.
How a turn is played out. Alright, so since we're starting out combat for the first time, this prompt. At the beginning of each turn, your enemies announce the actions they are going to launch. You have 5 action points to share among your disciples in order to thwart their attack. Once you've finished your enemies, play their announced actions. Then a new turn begins with the enemy's announcement of their intentions. So if we look here, this enemy is going to attack and deal 8 damage to Dracula, which shows up over here. We are going to be using Bloody Mary to choose her skills. So we're going to select Stabbing. And we are going to choose the Marauder. Click on him. She's going to stab and deal some serious damage. Now, they have 2 different health bars basically. You have health points and you have spiritual points. All combatants have 2 gauges of health. One for physical and one for spiritual. The one we just hit, the red bar, is our physical damage. It reduces the number of health points, while inflicting spiritual damage reduces the number of spiritual points. So if we had a spiritual attack, we would take on this purple health bar. To defeat an enemy, we either reduce their health points or spiritual points to 0, and then inflict the same type of damage one last time to finish them off. So we have to use attacks that will cause until we get our enemy to 0, and then we have to hit them again. So you'll notice that when we used our skills, they kind of fade. They turn gray. This one right here, for example, is gray, while this one is purple. It means that we've used it. So we have to recharge our skills. When you use a skill, you complete its charge, and it can't be used again until it's recharged. Each disciple possesses a recharge action that replenishes all their skills. Recharge actions vary from one disciple to another. For example, some have bonus effects that change their cost. So Dracula has a recharge ability that actually affects all of your disciples. The other ones only affect the individual. Dracula's ability does diminish our action points. We had 5 to start. That's the default. Each of our abilities uses a certain number. So this one uses 2. This one uses 1. So we have no more actions that we can play. We have to end our turn. We have to make. So Dracula just got hit. He took 8 damage. It wants us to select Bleeding Heart, which is one of these abilities. We're going to again. It's going to put a vulnerable state. So when an enemy is reduced to 0 health points or 0 spiritual points, they won't die immediately. You have to give them another attack that deals the same type of damage. In this case, physical health. Attacks that do essence to keep them alive so that they can complete their mission. That's for our disciples. So let's say Dracula got down to vulnerable. We can actually use our diabolic essence and actually adjust his health bar from vulnerable back up. Right now we can't do that, so we're just going to kill him.
Cower before my omnipotence.
So now he's dead.
Simple mortal trinkets. You'd better find a use for them.
Come to our after combat rewards page. We have different types of rewards. We chose the skill, right? So what we're going to get is a skill. So we can choose from all of these skills. In this case, it wants us to choose the Fury Fang for Dracula. We're going to do that. And we're going to place it in this open skill slot. So if you don't have an open skill slot, you actually can replace one of your other skills. Unfortunately, you're only allowed to have 5 to start for each of your disciples. Alright, so here we are, back on the main screen, and it tells us to move to the next zone. Here we go.
You shall not leave until all the mortals in this region have bowed down before me.
Alright, so now that we're in the next area, we have what's called extra activities. So extra activities are only in some zones, they're not in every zone. And those extra activities are optional. So if for some reason, you know, it's a combat and we're low on diabolic essence, we may not want to go into that combat because we could lose. If it's an event or something like that, more than likely you want to use those extra activities so that you can actually maybe get some more diabolic essence, get some souls, without really having any sort of fear of losing the game. Right, so in this case, we're at full diabolic essence, and this extra event is a combat. It is optional. We don't have to do this, but because it is the tutorial, we do have to do it. So it wants us to again choose the skill, and you see how this says 2 right here. There should be 2 enemies.
Heads will roll tonight.
So Dracula's about to be hit with some serious damage. It's going to put him at vulnerable if he takes all 25 of this damage. We don't want that to happen. So we want to reduce the amount of damage that he can take. There are several ways to reduce the inflicted damage. We can use skills that immediately diminish the imminent damage. Bloody Mary has an ability that reduces the amount of damage that attacks do. And 2, with statuses that protect our disciples or negatively affect our enemies. So in this case, we can select Mary.
Game are we playing?
She is bloodthirsty, which translates to physical skills that can only target the weakest adversaries. So she's always going to go for the one with the lowest amount of red health bar. And in this case, it happens to be the Inquisitor. So Mary also possesses a mirror that she places in front of the enemy of her choice when she recharges. So she uses this ability here, and will make a mirror appear. And then once her mirror is in place, all of the skills she plays are reproduced on the mirror's target. So if you use the skill on the same enemy, it does the attack again. And if you place it on a different enemy and then attack, so we'll put the mirror on this person and we attack this one, it also attacks this one for the same attack. So we'll click on
Mirror, mirror, who shall die tonight?
and now we're going to use Twist of Fate, which is that ability that reduces the incoming attack damage, so that Dracula doesn't go down. You saw that it went from 25 down to 17, and that's because his attack was by 4. So now we can select Stabbing, which will inflict 7 to 12 health points of damage, but it has Bloodthirst, so that green text there, it says, the skill can only target the adversary with the least HP. So you have to attack this one. By doing that, we did 7 damage from the first hit, but because she has the mirror behind him, it did a second attack. So he's now down to 4. Next turn, definitely knock him. And knock him. So it looks like Dracula's not a big hit. But the Headless Horseman, who is our kind of tank, if you will, The Headless Horseman is a battle-hardened soldier who can take blows and dish them out. He gets reductions in damage and provocation status that allows him to redirect the attacks to himself. So instead of Dracula taking this 39 damage, we can shift it over to the Headless Horseman. So when he suffers damage, he gets what's called bitterness. And when it's at its maximum, it enables him to launch extremely powerful skills.
Who should I kill?
Click on him. On guard is that ability that allows us to get provocation. So he's the target. It also gives shell. So go ahead and do it.
On guard!
Dracula from having to get knocked out here. So statuses. You saw that we added provocation and shell. Certain effects allow you to apply a status to a character. These can have a number of charges or a duration in turns. If they have charges, they lose one charge each time they are triggered. And if they have a duration, they can be launched several times for as long as they are active. There are 6 different status types. We have enhancements, which are orange. We have protections, which are blue. Cures, which are green. Maneuvers, which are yellow. Control, which is purple. And weakness, which is red. A character can hold only one status of each type. So you have a yellow one and a blue one, and then you get another yellow one. The first yellow one will actually go away, and then the new one will take its place. But if it's the same ability, so let's say provocation, we get another one, it'll just add on. So instead of this one, it'll be 2. So now, slashing, it deals 7 to 12 hit points of damage, and it applies 1 bleeding. Bleeding, each time that they inflict damage, the holder suffers 5 to 8 HP. So this guy, when he attacks, is actually
You lack discipline.
bleeding will kill the enemy, so when he attacks, he's going to kill himself. And even though we now know anything about points,
I'll do likewise.
not quite optimal. It's a tutorial, it's just teaching us how things work. Alright, so you see Dracula is invulnerable. Dracula is our leader of men and was once a bloodthirsty warrior. He earned his longevity from being extremely cautious in potentially deadly situations, and this experience has given him a number of skills that benefit his own team. But when he becomes vulnerable, the warrior reawakens, and some of his skills become devastating. So let's click on Dracula here. Dracula has an ability called Bloodlust. It'll give him vampirism, where each time he inflicts physical damage, he also deals 3 to 5 hit points. And that'll take him out of vulnerable and give him some health back. And then he's got Sharpening, which does plus 4 HP for skills. Activated. Unfortunately, that's not going to be enough for him to survive this. That's 65 damage, right? That's a ton.
I don't like this situation.
So
Let's
click on the
change
button,
it.
and that button will bring us into the Devil, which allows us to kind of cheat. We can adjust health bars and move buffs and debuffs around. We can recharge our skills and so on. The only limit here to what we can do is the amount of points that we have. So each time we do something, it requires us to spend some points. So one of our powers allows us to move statuses and combatants. So we're actually going to take this ability right here, Dracula, and then we're going to
Reality is but a toy to me.
thing is to we're actually going to drop this person's health down to 0.
The only limit to my power is my imagination.
And we are going to use some bleeding heart on. So Dracula gains 7 hit points back. He also has Aegis, which reduces the loss of HP by 6. That's the buff that we stole. Unfortunately, even though we have extra AP, we can't use our attacks because so
What's keeping you from ridding us of this vermin, disciples?
so you'll notice that the amount of damage that we took was more than Dracula's health points, even outside of the So when we take extra damage, it goes to the devil. And that comes out in his diabolic essence. So when the disciples are vulnerable, they suffer extra damage, the devil protects it so they don't die. If you keep using them in combat, the only problem is you start losing your diabolic essence. Now, if you lose all of it, you lose. So we try to take as little damage as we can as the devil and keep it amongst our disciples here. So we're going to finish the fight by our own means, which is nice. It's going to allow us to do what we need to do to win the fight. And what I would do, honestly, in this situation is first put them in a vulnerable status there.
What
and then
game are we playing?
Another night, another conquest.
Be gone.
Choose quickly. Evil will not spread by itself.
We have another reward screen here, so skill evolutions. Skills have 3 levels of rarity. We have ordinary, wicked, and demonic. When you get a skill for the 3rd time, so you get 3 copies of a skill, you can fuse them together and increase their level of rarity, which of course increases their strength and innate buffs or debuffs that they add when they're used. So I'll actually show you how that works. They want me to choose Bleeding Heart. So I chose Bleeding Heart. We have 3 of them. Together become 1. That's kind of a downside in that you only get 1 of them, but it is now stronger, right? The original version was not 8 to 15.
Take everything you can.
On top of that, we get another skill. So we don't just lose our skill and have an empty spot, we actually get to choose an additional skill. And this one, if you look at purple border, is also at a higher skill level. So we'll throw that in here. We now have 2 higher level attacks for Dracula, and then we have what's called a Styx Fountain. Alright, so this is another event. Launch it. You can smell the noxious waters of the Styx even before you see the source. Click to observe to learn more. This is the item that we click on to actually go through, but if you are curious, click on this. It says the waters of the Styx bubble up in the form of fountains at certain spots spread around the world. You can use its water to regenerate your diabolic essence or purge your disciples' negative traits. So events and stuff can give us negative traits, but as of right now, we don't have any. You can only withdraw energy from the source 1 time. Your disciples assemble around the altar awaiting your orders.
There's nothing like the vile waters of the Styx to invigorate me.
We can only choose healing or removing negative effects, but because we have no negative effects, we can't choose it. So we're going to replenish. Alright, so now we're back up at full diabolic essence, and we're going to move on. So to the next zone. The next zone is actually an event. It's kind of a text-based story. There is voice
I hear
acting.
the murmurs of the trees. They're fed up with humans. Let us answer their prayers.
So whenever we walk into a new environment like this forest here, you're gonna hear the devil talk about that environment. So the swamps, or the forests, or the city areas, he's actually gonna talk about them. Let's see, Bad Saber. This is a town where an event will occur, so we can click on that. It allows us to choose one of our disciples, and depending on which one we choose, we get different effects. So with Dracula, if we choose him, we would get a positive perk called Medium. He's going to have that. It's a permanent buff that's applied to him for this run. So when we get through it, even if we lose, it goes away and it resets to default. So it gives 2 temptation, which is kind of one of our social stats. Spiritual damage +1. So anytime he does spirit damage, he actually deals 1 additional one. And then 6 maximum spirit points up. That's our health bar for the spiritual, and then health points as well. In this case, it wants us to choose the Headless Horseman. So we're going to pick that, and it'll prestidigitate. Alright, so our disciples stumble upon a young man shooting at a straw target with a crossbow. He's startled when he notices that it points his weapon in their direction. Alright, so you'll notice in the background that people are moving around and there are bugs and stuff flying around. Overall, the background moves just a little bit when you move the mouse around, and I like that. It actually gives you a lot of kind of smoothness, some extra behavior that goes on, so it's not very flat, not static, which I enjoy a lot. Alright, so we're talking to this apprentice demon hunter, apparently. He's kind of dirty, kind of beat up. You are... I recognize you. My master told me about you. You are the devil's emissaries. Alright, so this kid recognizes our disciples. I'm going to annihilate you and become a legend in my own time. I'll be the greatest demon hunter ever. Despite his boasting, the kid can barely hide the fact that he's shaking in his boots. You can almost feel sorry for him, but his naivety annoys you. There must be a way to use him to your advantage. So this kid is fresh in demon hunting, and he has no idea what he's doing. So we can observe the scene to gather more information, and actually it's nice. It allows us to get a little bit more insight into what we could do, what benefits to our choices there are. Alright, so this kid already fancies himself the new Van Helsing, even though he's never looked evil in the face until a few minutes ago. The time has come to let him taste the secret horrors of no. Click on the interactive element, which happens to be the Apprentice Demon Hunter. Alright, so we can choose different things, and based on our stats, we'll get easier or harder choices. As the events unfold, you will have to make choices that influence how the story progresses and the rewards you receive. Certain actions are social tests, and passing them depends on your disciples' characteristics. The actions that require a test have greater potential, but unless you cheat, you take the risk of failing. So if we fail, we actually end up getting negative traits and debuffs. So, Terrorize the Apprentice is fairly easy already. It's got an 80% success rate. And then Turn the Apprentice against the Demon Hunter, 60% already. I would want to go with this one right here. But just to make sure that it actually goes
Let's
well,
get down to business.
go into Devil Mode, we can actually adjust this bar. We can go down, or we can make it go up. Either way, also going down. Going down doesn't benefit us in any way, and it actually costs us Diabolic Essence. So if we go up, brings it up to 100% chance.
The only limit to my power
It
is
did
my imagination.
5 Diabolic Essence. So by spending that, we allow ourselves to automatically succeed. Success. Headless Horseman infiltrates the Apprentice's mind to make his worst nightmares come true. Shadow creatures begin crawling on the ground around him and over his skin. So he is being manipulated mentally to make him see some scary stuff. And so there was a reaction. The Headless Horseman, anything goes when it comes to accomplishing my mission, even magic. So Bloody Mary also reacted to that choice. So we chose something, and our disciples get different benefits or debuffs based on those choices. More, I want to see more. It's a soldier's duty to master all the weapons in his arsenal. So the Headless Horseman receives the following trait. By choosing what we did, he gained Intriguing. So it gives +1 Temptation, which is that social stat, and then +4 max spiritual points, so you can take a little bit more beating. Bloody Mary receives Sinister, which is +1 to scare, and +3 max hit points. And the Headless Horseman actually got an additional one, Assassin. It gives +2 to stealth and +2 physical damage. So now he hits harder on top of being more survivable, just by doing this event instead of a combat or something like that. So disciples' reactions, they sometimes react after the social tests. Depending on their temper, each disciple has more or less chance to react positively. A reaction can either only involve the disciple who just passed the test, or be a conversation with another member of the team. Reactions generate a trait for at least one of the participants, either positive or negative, depending on the reaction's nature. So we can have negative reactions, which are these kind of red ones, or we can have green reactions, which are positive ones. Livid with terror, the apprentice hunter tries to kill them. This is the illusory creatures. So because they're only illusions and you can't touch them, he falls to his knees before the disciple, begging, "Have pity, make them stop. I'll do whatever you want." So because he's at the Headless Horseman's mercy, what should we do with him? The tutorial wants us to choose this action, which is to force him to betray the other demon hunters. Headless Horseman explains to him that the only way to make the creatures disappear is by killing the other demon hunters that he knows. So this sounds like it would benefit us quite a bit. Without a second's hesitation, the apprentice takes off running for the nearest demon hunter refuge. It won't be long before the souls of those accursed upstarts are among your subjects. So, if this guy goes and kills a bunch of demon hunters, we are going to get their souls.
Finally, fresh souls to torment.
In this case, we get 300 souls. They're used as a currency to buy skills and relics from the Grim Reaper. 300 is quite a bit. You don't usually get 300 from the events, at least not early on. So the Headless Horseman, because he completed the event, got what's called Prestidigitator. He gets +2 ruse, +2 stealth, and +8 max health points, which is quite a bit. Traits are permanent and affect the social and combat characteristics of the disciple who obtains them. Your disciples can also receive negative traits, so if they fail a social test or show negative reactions during an event, those negative traits can be purged at the Fountains of the Styx. And that's kind of a trade-off because we either get Diabolic Essence or remove negative traits. Alright, so open the spellbook. Looking at the spellbook, we have our various different characters here. So Bloody Mary happens to be set as our leader right now. She's a bloodthirsty murderer who viciously pummels her weakest enemies, and she uses her mirror to inflict heavy damage on an adversary or attack several at a time. She's got the positive ability of +1 scare, +3 max health points, and that's from Sinisters. This green means that it's been modified. We can actually scroll over each of these social traits and see what they're for. Scare. The terror score represents a disciple's capacity for inspiring fear. Occultism shows their ability and knowledge of magic.
You dare to leave your master to do all the work?
Temptation allows us to infiltrate mortal minds and convince them to join our cause. Stealth represents their ability to melt into the shadows and avoid notice. And then ruse is the score that allows them to trick their way in and out of situations, talk their way in and out. So we have all of her abilities and attacks if you are unsure of what something does or what it will do when it evolves. You can see that here on this screen as well. If they have any individual relics, which only affect that one character, you can see those here. And now we're looking at Dracula. He's got all of his stuff here. He has no positive or negative traits currently. But if we look at the Headless Horseman, so +2 physical damage, a bunch of health. His stats are buffed. So he's got Intriguing, Assassin, and Prestidigitator. Each of them gives him buffs. We can also look at the Devil. So the Devil has no combat relics right now, or other relics that'll affect anything, but you can see all of his powers. So for each one Diabolic Essence that you use, you can add or subtract 4 hit points. And then the same thing as Spirit points. For 4, you can remove a vulnerability status from your combatants. So you can swipe to move it from 0 up to a number, and it will cost 4 to do that. Moving statuses from one character to another costs 5. Recharging skills costs 3.
The world of
Succeeding
mortals
at
awaits my judgment.
Those social tests cost 5. Creating a portal costs 6, and then replacing a secondary activity with another. We can actually change from, let's say, combat to an event as a blue. Let's go check this out. So we'll come out this way. We're going to head to the Grim Reaper next.
I sense many souls here. I must have them all.
So here we are. We're at the Grim Reaper. They call this the Enigmatic Headstones. It's kind of just a location. You see all that. We go in. So in this secret meeting place, hidden from mortals, your disciples meet with the Grim Reaper. It's time to do some business. We are talking to the Grim Reaper so that we can buy some stuff. You also have a map here.
The conductor of souls finally deigns to show himself. Don't make him wait.
Alright, so we have the ability to buy all kinds of stuff here. You can buy that skill. Drop that in here.
am pleased with these offerings. Take
now
them.
we have the ability to take inflict health points or spirit points, whichever is weaker. But we also reduce impending attacks by those individuals based on the amount of bitterness that he has. So this is actually a really useful ability. We're going to go ahead and we're also going to get a relic. So this one has haste, which allows us to recharge our abilities as we use them for 2 charges. Next up, I'm going to buy stabbing for Mary. It's going to bump her attack from 7 up to 14 to 21. It's quite a bit of damage.
Choose quickly. Evil will not spread by itself.
And then I think we're going to go with this one, Shard of Psyche, because it allows us to deal spirit damage, but then also minus 10 HP inflicted by the skills that our opponents have. So we'll take less damage in the long run. Sense. And let's see. This is also pretty powerful abilities. We're going to go ahead and grab that one. And we're going to replace the Fury Fang. It's going to give us 0. And then we can use this to improve one of our abilities. We have another Grim Reaper coming up, so I think we're going to go ahead and buff that one there. Boy, map. Oh no. Map seems to be in the way. Let's see what we can do here. Looks like we are stuck. So I will be right back. This is a new game. It is in beta still, so there's going to be some bugs. And we just kind of picked up on one, so we're going to go ahead and come back in just a second. Alright, we are back. We are going to go ahead and continue our save slot here. We ran into a bug, so unfortunately we kind of lost some progress.
This well of flame.
Let's continue.
Ah, a conductor of souls.
So here we are
All
back at the
those
Reaper.
innocent souls I harvested will finally be of use.
We now have the ability to buy stuff and not done that. We can also choose an ability upgrade, so we're going to do that. And we're going to quit. So now we'll move on.
This sanctuary is an insult to my glory. Destroy it.
So the devil wants us to go ahead and take out this sanctuary, but in reality it's just going to be a book chapter. So we're going to listen instead of actually doing something.
My disciples enter the Sanctualumen sanctuary and determine that it has well and truly replaced the old religions. Priest and warrior monks train to fight the creatures of the night. Vampires and werewolves rot in silver cages. My disciples swoop upon this new enemy, and soon lifeless bodies litter the sanctuary's floor. A handful of survivors are charged with spreading the word of my return. We then leave for the last known bastion of Van Helsing.
Alright, so we have the choice of combat or an event. Looks like we gotta go around this way. Right. So since we want to go see the Grim Reaper again, we'll go to the event. When they see your disciples, the peasants run off to sound the alarm in the nearby villages.
No one stands against the Prince of Hell.
we kind of have a negative thing coming for us because humanity is rising. Excuse me, is rising against us. Upon arrival in the zone, the relics in your store are deactivated until you leave the zone. So the little torch shows us that when we go to the Grim Reaper, any relics that we have will be turned off while we're there. So we click on the map. You see that, and it wants us to use the devil mode to cheat and avoid the threat.
If you want something done right, do it yourself.
It wants us to create an access portal. It's going to use some of our diabolic essence.
The only limit to my power is my imagination.
It allows us to come over here to this event instead of going to the Grim Reaper. We don't want that. We want to go to the Grim Reaper because he has the skill kind of waiting for us, right? So we don't want to use the demonic portal. We actually want to just go through here and choose one of these things here. So I think we want to go with Dracula here. The Sanctuary Lumen's men are inside the walls of Sick Tree, preparing to submit the villagers to the question. They are convinced that several witches live in the area and they are correct. These fanatics of the light seem willing to do whatever it takes to eliminate the witches. With a little push from you, they might burn Sick Tree and all of its inhabitants. But there might be a more subtle way to use them that would allow you to save the witches. Alright, let's learn some more. The entire population of Sick Tree is waiting in the central square, closely watched by Inquisitors. It's easy to mix in with the crowd, but almost impossible to escape it. The Sanctuary Lumen has done a good job. The witches are trapped, and it's just a question of time before they're discovered. So Dracula mixes in among the crowd. Now, it's both the best hiding place and the best position from which to influence the goings-on. Dracula is ready to act. So, it's going to be extremely hard for us to help the witches escape, but easy for us to accuse the group of innocent bystanders. We can also study how the Inquisitors work. So let's go ahead and study them. As the Inquisitors circulate mercilessly amongst the crowd, sometimes they stop to interrogate someone harshly or look them up and down suspiciously. Dracula notices that the crowd is getting restless, which makes the soldiers more and more nervous. If Dracula incites a riot, the Inquisitors might be tempted to burn the whole tower, but the witches might not survive. So, we can confront the Inquisitors or start a riot. I think we're going to start a riot. Dracula stirs up the villagers' anger and indignation by convincing them that they're being treated like livestock. They are corralled and inspected by the Sanctuary Lumen's men. They're like beasts led to the slaughter. That's all it takes for the humans to revolt en masse. Soon, the Inquisitor's verdict is handed down, and all of the inhabitants of Sick Tree have been found guilty of serving the forces of evil. Your disciples are far away when the flames begin to lick the sky. Tonight, you've lost some valuable witches, but you've gained hundreds of souls.
Scream as loud as you can, condemned souls. I'm the only one who can hear you.
We just got 400 souls.
The curse will pay for that.
That said, humanity is rising against us, so the following effect will affect a zone situated in 2 nights. So this would be 1 night, this is 2 nights. Upon arriving in the zone, one of your disciples receives a random negative trait. That's kind of unfortunate. But Dracula gained Talented. Makes him overall better in combat. We're gonna go see the Grim Reaper.
That putrid smell. That deathly silence. I feel right at home.
So, here we are, Sick Tree. Extra activity. Stealth and physical damage increase. Health points, physical damage increase. We get some social boosts and spiritual points. I think we're gonna go ahead with this one. So as they enter the Sick Tree Cemetery, your disciples notice something strange. A huge pile of corpses. As they come closer to examine the mystery, the gravedigger calls out to them. If you're coming to drop off a body, walk right back out and put it in the common grave. With this damned white plague ravaging the countryside, I don't have any space for new residents. And the worst part is that all these plague-infected bodies don't rot. There has to be some dark magic at work in there somewhere. I'm sure of it. I'd give anything to get rid of these bodies. So, click. Gravedigger isn't joking when he says the cemetery is full. There are more tombstones than there are trees in the forest, and the graves are so full that each one forms a small burial mound. The pile of corpses includes men and women, young and old. It seems the epidemic spares no one. They are all as pale as ghosts, as if they had been drained of all their blood. That's why it's called the White Plague. Talk to him. The Gravedigger looks nervously at your disciples. We can make a pact with him, examine a corpse more closely, or harvest the souls of the dead. Let's go ahead and examine a corpse more closely. Gravedigger wasn't lying. The bodies look as fresh as the day they died. Unknown magic dwells beneath their skin. You should be able to withdraw it. The Headless Horseman is awaiting our orders. He can either absorb the magic or create a talisman.
I don't like this situation. Let's change it. The dice were loaded from the start.
So Headless Horseman rips open the flesh to extract the heart from which the magic seems to emanate. He extracts as much magic as possible in order to create a demonic talisman of extraordinary power. Terrified by the spectacle he just witnessed, the Gravedigger flees the cemetery. Your disciples let him escape. It's his reward for enabling the creation of this new relic.
A fragment of power for my disciples.
Alright, so we can choose from among these three. Ghostly Veil. All combatants earn +2 spiritual damage. Not very useful. Corrupted Talisman. All your disciples earn +3 damage. Your max diabolic essence is set to 30, so kind of big swing in both directions. And each time the 3 disciples play in a turn, +2 damage for the rest of combat. I think we'll go ahead and take this one. Yeah, it lowers our maximum, but it also gives us +3 damage. I want the heads I collect to wear a grimace of terror. Ooh, next time can you do it in color? Blood. Screams. Sinister. +1 scare, +3 max health points. Self-effacating. +1 stealth, +5 max speed. And he got brawny, +3 physical damage, +3 max hit points. So he just got +6 damage. And now we're gonna go see the Grim Reaper.
I am pleased with these offerings.
Our devouring charge now has up to
A conductor of souls. All those innocent souls I harvested will finally be of use.
Alright, so we have all kinds of things that we can pick up here. You can get relics. I think we're going to get a couple of relics here. Also go to ability there. I think we'll also get that. We have lots of souls. So let's see here. Ooh. No, we don't want that. So she doesn't have any room. He doesn't have any. Nobody's really got any room, so we'll just go ahead and get this as well. Be on our way. So we'll go ahead, we'll move on. Unfortunately, when we move into this combat, one of our disciples is going to receive a negative trait. Hopefully it's not too bad. Something else we can do. Oh, that's too late. Well, we're already here.
I accept my punishment.
Alright, so he gets the negative trait Banal, which is -1 temptation. So it's not too bad. We'll go ahead and get this terror effect. Doesn't
I heard you. You
Doesn't go
called
to
me
get
3 times.
So let's see. He's got haste. They've got a mental barrier, which reduces SP separated by 6. And this one's got a physical barrier, that protects.
I shall reforge the world in my image.
Go ahead and actually steal that.
The devil.
Barrier. So this one is now free to take spiritual damage. There's the spiritual damage attack. Now they're vulnerable. Add those two. Yep.
You may go.
Physical damage also. Take a small hit. We're going to be able to take this person down.
Your head just isn't in the fight.
Those who do not submit must die. Soon the humans will all bow down before me.
Get that terror effect. Terror appears in all the zones in a line and depends on the type of zone they affect. Each terror effect increases your terror gauge by 1 point. For every 4 points gained, you move up a notch in terror, increases your chances of obtaining wicked skills, and receive a relic. So upon arrival in this next zone, we receive 60 souls.
Finally, fresh souls to torment.
And we got 20 souls just now. But we are almost done. This is the last stop before the boss.
Hillocks and fields as far as the eye can see. This seems
Styx Fountain, what we're going to want to do is go ahead and heal.
the sticks.
We're as full as we can be. And then we go to the final combat, which is against the boss. Final combat. You reach the boss of the book, all you have to do is defeat it. Just like red threads, there will never be secondary activities in these zones. A book will always end with final combat, and each book has its own boss. Haunted Mansion.
I guide my disciples to Van Helsing's lair. He is there, surrounded by his men. He is waiting for us. The news of my return does not seem to have shaken him. And so battle is engaged.
Alright, so we're going to fight Van Helsing.
Van Helsing. Finally we meet again. Prepare to suffer an eternity of torment, mortal.
It's a pretty cool area. It's a really beat up mansion. We have 3 enemies, the Duelist, Sinistra, and Van Helsing. So, if you look at Van Helsing, he's got 9999 HP and 9999 SP. From the looks of it, we are not meant to win this battle. We are going to go ahead and fight anyway and do our best, regardless of whether we win or lose. We are going to this attack.
Have permission to die. Our duel is coming to its close.
And then
Your head is mine.
so that person's dead now. We're out of attack points.
Disciples, do you want to feel my wrath?
Clearly see that Van Helsing is very powerful, and we're going to do our best. We are still probably going to lose.
I don't like this situation. Let's change it. My power is absolute.
What game are we playing?
Let's see if we can Yep. Alright, so that's 2 down. We're out of attack points. let's see what happens.
What's keeping you from ridding us of this vermin, disciples?
My disciples are defeated. Van Helsing brushed them aside with the swipe of a hand. What a humiliation. The growing influence of the Sanctuary Lumen has sapped my strength. I order my disciples to retreat towards a location from where we shall launch a different kind of attack.
Alright, so that said, we have 6 relics here. The 6 pictures that you see here, those are the 6 relics that we are going to try and get so that we can eventually beat Van Helsing. As we play through the game, we should be able to get those. So we finished the chapter. We ended with defeat, unfortunately.
A boon to my conquest.
As far as we made it, we get rewarded with the ability to get a new attack. This is called Midnight Kiss. It's for Dracula. Because we lost, we returned to the Devil's Lair as a loss. That takes us back here, and I think we're going to go ahead and stop for today. Overall, this game looks good. I like a lot of the mechanics, the whole diabolic essence thing, the ability to cheat, change the outcomes of things, manipulate our opponent's stats, and recharge our abilities, stuff like that. That's really cool. It's a mechanic that doesn't show up in too many of these games. I've played this for about 10 or 15 hours so far, and I've seen quite a bit of it, and a lot of it, it's hard. So expect to lose quite a bit if you do play this game. I do recommend it. It is great. Thank you for watching. If you really enjoyed it, please leave comments down below, likes, all of that. Thank you so much.